Hi guys, and welcome to our Wednesday night AMA with a twist. We are joined by, actually, I should probably start at the start. I'm Michael. This is Emma,
Hi.
and we're joined tonight by a good friend of mine and I suppose a long-time tournament opponent, Josh Difsta Diffie. How you going, dude?
Howdy. How you all doing?
We're doing well, actually.
Yeah, technology is challenging us as always, but here we are. We're just, 25 minutes late, but we made it.
No. I like to think we're 7 minutes early because we don't normally start these till 9 o'clock Western Australian time, so we're early.
Sure, we'll go with that.
Look, this is good though because it gives us an opportunity now to go through some cool stuff with Diffie and talk about Down Under Pairings, which is what we're going to do, and then hopefully it'll set us up for the future to do this with other guests. So thanks very much for your patience, dude.
Thanks for being our guinea pig.
Yeah,
we really appreciate that.
Happy to. Yes, it's good to actually get a proper chat with Emma rather than accidentally
when my Bluetooth
joining
picks
her
up
in her car.
Yeah.
It's always nice to have a random man's voice start talking to me through the radio.
So for those of you who are joining us, a bit of background, Diffie and I have known each other since, 2011, give or take?
Yeah, probably 2011, I think was
you were over in Perth playing some 40K tournaments.
Yes.
And then there was a conversation that went along the lines of, hey, do you want to come to Poland and play ETC? And somehow Emma agreed to that year. And you and I flew halfway around the world to play 40K at the ETC in 2012. And we've kind of kept in touch ever since. I mean, we haven't had too many games since pre-ETC, I'll admit.
I don't think we've played any games since then.
No, but
I think the only game I played you was the first Perth tournament I came to, which
Skulls.
Was out there. Yeah, Skulls.
Bastard beat me by 1 quill point.
Oh, I like that 7 years and you're still holding on to that.
He will get why I'm still holding on to that. That's a thing. We obviously try and catch up about once a year when we do the Australian team challenge, Australasian team challenge, I should say, the ATC as we know it.
ANZ team championships.
Oh, don't start that with me again. You and I have had this conversation off air. It's still the ATC.
It is the ATC, but its official name is ANZ team championships.
Yeah, there you go. We didn't catch up last year because I was at LVO instead of ATC. And I don't believe, since you've got a young addition to the family, I don't think you're coming to Perth this year for the ATC.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty bummed. This will be the first ATC ever that I won't be at it. And I was super, super pumped to come over to see show. So I guess I'll just have to come to show next year.
Yeah, definitely.
We will hold you to that.
But you and I we speak a lot, particularly in the recent months, and a lot of it comes back to not just 40K, but a lot of tournament organizer type stuff where you've been heavily invested in running tournaments, particularly on the East Coast, for a number of years now, and obviously a lot of that stems back to the ATC. And you have developed a website that TOs can use to essentially help them run events. Now, we've been running events now, is it actively for 3 years?
Just shy of 3 years.
Under the OBSEC banner. And we've tried a number of different systems over the years to score the events. And one of the biggest hurdles that all TOs face is obviously that data gathering component of the event, particularly around painting scores and sportsmanship scores and best favorite army votes, that sort of thing as well.
Yeah.
And because of that, a lot of that seems to be very hobby-centric and specific to Australia. Things like Best Coast pairings, unfortunately, at the moment don't necessarily give us an opportunity to gather that data very well.
Yeah, for sure.
We end up, in the past, we've used BCP to download the game results and then copy and paste that into a spreadsheet and then manually entered all the other scores to get an overall winner.
Yep.
It's a pain in the bum. And
for sure.
I was talking to you about it, and this is something that you've obviously considered because Down Under Pairings is designed with Australian events in mind, so you kind of cater to all of that sort of stuff. So after chatting to you, we thought it might be cool to basically have our dry run through it before we use the software and kind of show it off to potential players of our events and obviously anyone else who cares to watch.
So how about you stop talking and
I was just
Diffie shows us what Best Coast Pairings looks like.
Down Under Pairings. Get it right.
It's all good. Yeah, so I guess the little backstory on it was I didn't actually set out to set up my own website. I was planning on using existing stuff. So I'm not sure if you ever used Torrent of Fire when it was a thing.
Yeah, well, it died.
Yeah, it died.
Just before we went live with our first event, we ended up using a program called WarScore.
Yep.
Which has been our fallback option now, well, since we downloaded it, 3 maybe years ago.
Yep. So I that was my first, I guess, foray into using. Obviously, that was well before Best Coast Pairings, but that had the similar issues that BCP has, which it just does battle, they weren't very handy when actually talking to them and trying to get, all right, well, hold on, we don't do it in a Nova style, we do it in Swiss, or we do it in this and we do it in that. So I did it for my own events, and then that just naturally grew. It's been going pretty strong in Melbourne for a while now, but other states have been a little slower to get on board. But look, I don't do it. I mean, as I've chatted to you before, it's a free thing. If you want to use it, you can use it. If you don't want to use it, you don't have to use it. I don't get anything out of it. It's a tournament management system written by a TO for TOs. And if you want to use it, cool. If you don't, that's also cool. I'd really like to know why, because then I can put it into the system. I put a few things into the system specifically after chats with yourself about the Grand Clash, and doing pairings the way they do it over with Warhammer Underworlds. But I'm happy to just jump in and show you a couple of things I've got set up.
Beautiful.
It's one that certainly we've had to look at how we do with picking up the Grand Clash for Australia in September at show. It's meant that we've had to obviously learn a different system of pairing, which is essentially what we're talking about in bracketed pairing. And it was something we've never had to deal with for our events.
No. And logistically, we were looking at it going, are we actually going to have to do this all by hand?
Yeah, and that was the real big concern.
So conveniently, we've actually done it in Down Under Pairings for, I think, 2 years now. Oz Masters has used not the exact format, but pretty much the exact format. Some minor tweaks, because it was designed, that system more around making sure that the two best players played each other in the final round.
At the end, yeah.
Which, in theory, is what the Grand Clash format is set up for, and it will work if you have the right number of players to the right number of rounds. But unfortunately, for example, with Oz Masters, it's 32 players, 5 rounds. It's perfect, but we've had dropouts each year, so it doesn't work if you do the format that they said, because you end up with the two best players in theory playing each other in like the 4th round, and then do they take each other out and bunny hops them over the top? But I've had a bit of a chat with Mike around some of the issues that might come up with this format, with the not so Grand Clash being, I think, the plans for 32.
32, yeah, and we've still got tickets available for that at the moment, so we'll see what the number is at the end of it. But
the main issues come around draws. They don't really describe very well in their player pack how they handle draws when only one game draws.
Okay.
So
obviously
if
that
one
messes
game
with the
draws,
brackets, doesn't it?
played each other, and there's nothing in their pack to say what, should someone play just the highest person in the bracket below, similar to odd numbers, which kind of makes sense. But it's, there's all kinds of iffy stuff. But the reality is, hopefully, draws don't happen.
Well,
Cool.
I mean, like I've said to you in conversations leading up to this, the chances of a draw occurring really only happen if players play quite slowly and don't get
it's
3
like
games.
Timeout is what I was thinking. Which I think you'll, hopefully the not so. I realistically think the not so Grand Clash will have probably quite a few people that's their first foray into Shadespire competitively, and they probably will time out. And hopefully they get that out of their system for when they get to the Grand Clash.
Yeah, hopefully.
Fingers crossed, yeah.
But I could, it's a a learning curve, and we'll see. But
That's it.
we'll talk it through.
All right.
All right.
It might be worth mentioning the way that bracketing scoring does actually work, because it might be something that some people are not necessarily familiar with. So yeah, there you go. I'll just open that up and let somebody answer it.
Essentially, it lets, like Diffy's just alluded to, the idea of it is to make sure that the best 2 players play the final.
Yeah.
So it essentially breaks you up into brackets based on your win-loss results, and then internally it then ranks you in regards to your scores as well. So that if you win your first round, you go into the winner's bracket, and the person with the most points plays the person with the least points.
Yeah.
Yep. In the winner's bracket.
Within that bracket,
Yeah.
and then you go through that cycle each round, essentially ensuring that by the time we get to the final round, in theory, with 32 players, you end up with the top 2 players being the only 2 in the bracket, who then play each other for the final.
The other thing we did for Ozmasters, which we don't have the data to do for Shadespire yet, was the first round wasn't random. It was seeded based on your national rankings. So the best player going into the event played the lowest ranked player going into the event. Similar concept of keeping those best players apart. Obviously, we don't have the data for Shadespire to do that. So you've got to do it random. And also, I think they specifically say first round's random. So it is what it is.
Well, what I might do then is lock the camera on you, and you can start check us out with what's happening.
Oh no, that didn't work.
It should do in a second. There we go.
Okay.
Alrighty. So I've got a couple of different demo events I can, I guess, take you through. I'll focus obviously on the not so grand clash because that's where the conversation mainly went. But I've actually got another one set up for based around one of your player packs. I think it was. I'm going to get it wrong here. It was either First Blood or First Strike.
First Blood.
Okay, I have 2 events in Down Under Pairings. One's called First Strike, one's called First Blood. So, basically, I thought I'll go through, how a player signs up and whatnot. Show you a bit about the, as a TO, how it makes your life easier, and then, we'll see where the rabbit hole takes us. So basically, under the tournaments section of downunderpairings.com, you'll be able to find the Not So Grand Clash. It's not there yet. I guess once we're all happy and you guys are cool with it, then we'll make it live and people can register. This one's obviously, as the name suggests, a demo.
So just to clarify, this is so Down Under Pairings is a website rather than it being an app.
It is correct. So it'll work on any device. Yeah. So at the moment, I'm currently looking at it obviously through my laptop. However, if you are on a phone, your screen is obviously a little smaller.
Yeah. Sure.
So it'll end up the menus will turn into drop downs automatically.
Cool.
You can. I've got a number of TOs that have run their events 100% off a phone. When you get to things like the managed player screens, and I'll show you them in a little bit later, I prefer a tablet or larger because just the amount of fields and data that you want to look at. But as a player, 100%, just whether you've got an iPhone, Android, doesn't matter. Log on in. So basically, you come into the page or for the event that you're thinking to register to, and you'll see a big sign up today button. Also, it's got a bit of a countdown of till it's meant to start, and I can just hit sign up today. I'm obviously an admin user, so that takes me there. Once I'm logged registered, there's a few things I can do. So, for example, I can submit my deck list. So I can hit submit deck list. I can pick which of my warbands it is. So, Stormcast Eternals and which one that falls under and so on and so on. I don't pretend to actually know what they all are just yet, but I know the names are right because I
copied them straight off the website.
So basically I can put that in. This is a free-form text, so I can, whether or not it's...
just copy-paste it out of another document or...
card one or whatever. I can copy and paste it from wherever I want to. I was hoping to copy and paste some stuff from the deck build link on Warhammer Underworlds, for this, but unfortunately it was down for maintenance today. So
Oh no.
yeah, that didn't work.
They do have all the cards listed there in exceptional detail.
Yep.
But I'm sure there's a data, like a spreadsheet or something hidden, like a macro that's hidden in the background that we can copy and paste that out of.
Now, one of the things that I've currently got still turned on for this, just for demo purposes, but I don't think they'll allow it in the Grand Clash player pack, is both grudge matches and blood rules. So if I click on this drop-down box, it'll list every single player that's currently registered. And I've just picked a smattering of random WA players and signed them up to the demo one.
Awesome.
So I can say, you know what, I want to grudge Pete, hit grudge match. I'll get a few, and then I can see that. When Pete then logged on, he would also see that that's there. We can cancel the grudge if need be. And if you want a blood rule, you've got options of saying, well, this is my club name. The next player that comes in will be able to select from a drop-down box. So, you know, it'll stop you playing them in the first round. I know, as I said, that's not something that you do for the not-so-grand clash, and obviously that would be a feature that, as a TO, you can just turn off. However, I thought I'd just leave it on for this evening.
It's a good one, though, because we've got a couple of groups in Perth here that have kind of started their own little team. The most well-known one for WA is the Toy Soldier Cartel, and we've now got the Tabletop Mafia as well.
Yep.
You know, and there'll be a few more of those groups start appearing, I assume, off the back of it, because particularly Toy Soldier Cartel have kind of gained a little bit of vision within the community here in WA. So it might be nice to include that for them, just so that they don't have to play each other round one.
Yeah, and look, we use this once again for Ozmasters. We blood ruled each of the states, so you didn't come all that way in round one. Play WA. You went over with two mates and to where was it? Sydney, and you end up playing one of your mates that you just travelled over in the first round. So that's how I can register. We've got options to link, obviously, to your own to your event pages. So this will take me to the
offset page.
At the moment, I've got it going to the Facebook event. You can put it wherever you want as a TO. I just thought that was a reasonable spot. And the player pack is going to your PDF that you had linked on your website.
Yep, cool.
So at this stage, we don't store PDFs or store the player packs. We give you the option of that way. If you want to update it, you don't have to then go and reload it in 4 or 5 different places.
Yeah, awesome. We have enough trouble remembering to upload it in one place. So.
Yeah, exactly. So that's, I guess, getting registered, which ideally, obviously, do that before the event. So as you can secure a spot. So obviously, if you cap your number of players, that's obviously relevant. If I come into the managed tournament,
just before you go further, Diff, I'm right in saying that if a player just wants to register. So they go to downunder.pairings.com and literally just register as a player. Am I right in saying?
So basically, if I log out, when you come to downunder.pairings.com, you'll have obviously a login option and a new user. If you click new user, we don't store a huge amount of data, basically who you are, what username you want to use, an email address, which state I guess you call home. If you want to put your gaming club, you can put that there. And just a little bit to make sure that you are a human and not just some bot just spamming our site. Not that I actually imagine that's going to be a thing, but you never know. That's one of the things that actually downed Torrent of Fire when they tried to use it for ETC. They had some spam bots that were just malicious. So anyway, so yes, you can register for that, and then once you are registered,
so they have to do that before they sign into a tournament, don't they?
Yeah, well, they have to do it once.
Yeah.
And then you can sign in, obviously, to as many events as you'd like. There are a few profile settings if you want to get contacted about things. So at this stage, we don't send out emails or notifications, when a new event gets created or spam you with ads or anything like that. I think we sent out literally one email since its existence. To basically say we've added a new feature where you can disable emails, and the idea being, I was thinking far ahead to make sure that people didn't get spammed, but the idea being that TOs will be able to email their players to say, hey, and also selective. So, hey, people who haven't paid, email them and say, hey, pay. Or people who haven't submitted their list, email them out saying, please submit your list, that kind of stuff. As well as potentially for those that have said yes, they want it, when a new event gets registered, that you've played in that format in that state, it'll email you saying, hey, Objective Secured has just registered a new event, and you, Peter, like Shadespire and you live in WA, so check it out. That kind of that kind of stuff. It's not a feature there yet because we're currently looking at the actual technical side of things of making sure we don't spam people and it gets through filters and all that sort of jazz. If I log back in as me, and I obviously have a little few more privileges than most, but let's go back to the Not So Grand Clash. So as a TO, I won't go through every single option you can do because I don't want to keep it quite short, but I'll go through obviously the key ones that relate to this event and potentially others as well. So let's jump over to paint details. So at this stage, the only thing that the Grand Clash and Not So Grand Clash have is a player's choice.
Yep.
So here you'll see player's choice options. You've got the option of saying how many votes and up to 5. And then if you had more, how much each vote is worth. So at the moment, I've just got it 1 and it's worth 1 point. Yep. But if you decided they could vote for 2 of them and the first one gets 3 and the second one gets 1, that kind of stuff, you can do that. And you can also say whether or not it's included in their actual paint score or not, which in this case it wouldn't be because it's not actually totaling anything. It's just a side prize. I'll talk about, I guess, paint scoring and paint judging and stuff like that maybe when I get to First Blood, because obviously it's more focused around the more hobby-centric event. The other quick thing, I guess, worth talking about, obviously, is the pairing style. So the main two, I guess, see people using is Swiss pairing and bracketed pairing. I am looking at an option to break to a top 8 kind of scenario, similar to what you might see in Magic the Gathering, or I guess with Grand Clash, where they break to the top 2 and the others don't play, like that kind of thing. At the moment, I don't see it really taking off in Australia, so it's not high on my agenda to add.
No,
and
I think
here's that
it'll be
option
a fairly
about
unique
grudge
thing
matches.
anyway.
Sorry?
I think it'll be a fairly unique thing that only occurs when we're put in a position where
you're forced to.
That's the requirement. And there's not necessarily anything bad about the requirement. It's just one of those ones where it's not going to be something we casually adopt for the sake of adopting.
Yep.
Not unless Games Workshop comes out and publishes something official for everyone to use, and then, well, we'll deal with that hurdle when we come to it.
Yeah.
Yep. A few options around, do you allow grudge matches and all that sort of stuff, which, as I said, I turned on for the moment. Then we start getting down to the nitty-gritty of how your event's set up. So Warhammer Underworlds isn't a huge amount you have to do. You just select Warhammer Underworlds as the format. We've got VP differential, which is your ATC, ETC style, and then just a pure win-loss draw where effectively, did you get more victory points than your opponent kind of deal? Yes, you get a 15 then. Then things like whether or not tabling gets you a full win, which obviously is irrelevant in Warhammer Underworlds. And for those that don't, what's the bonus VP you get if tabled? So I think some events have done, if you table your opponent, it's not an auto win, but you get 4 victory points or whatever
it is. Yeah.
Basically, for Warhammer Underworlds, you don't need to worry about the battle point stuff, and hence it's just all showing as zeros. But the round points, which Warhammer Underworlds call match points, I think.
Yeah.
I've got 1 for a draw, 3 for a win, which is based on your play pack, and 0 for a loss. You can mess around with those numbers in other events. So if you feel as though 1 win is worth 2 draws, then you'd set that as a 2 instead. Yeah. That kind of stuff. You can then go through and set up your rounds. So obviously you've got a 5-round event. There's, once again, not a huge amount you have to do for Warhammer Underworld's format. I do have in here the ability of putting in round timings, which will have a countdown timer automatically display on the round pairings page when we get to it. That's not a mandatory field if you can't be bothered. For 40k style events, you can put things like deployment and special rules, but not overly relevant for Shadespire. And then in here, we can have up to 3 what I refer to as primary objectives, which for Shadespire is just your game 1, 2, and 3 glory. But for ETC style, you might have Eternal War, Maelstrom, kill points. Yep. And then you can do KP differential and things like that as well. Being able to cap each of those sections, which once again doesn't relate to Shadespire, but if you can only have up to 8 points under kill points, you can cap that off. So as people can put in their actual kill points, which is great for data purposes, but then they don't actually get the additional points.
Without sounding too derogatory, that idiot-proof moment of scoring, particularly for new players who don't necessarily understand the process, the ability to literally just write in the numbers they scored,
exactly,
and have the software work it out in the background is really, really good.
The other thing, I mean, you talk about idiot-proofing. We've had a number of situations, and most of them I've actually been at, because as I said, most of the events that have used it have been in Melbourne. But the option to say who got tabled, I've had to I add pop-up messages now, basically saying please confirm that Josh tabled Mike, because people were ticking the wrong box, and it's just doing my head in. So so I added a tick box. Secondaries is where you can start looking at
no, and then go back and fix it.
Yeah, TOs can still fix it, and if the player realizes the mistake before the round's finished, both players can effectively unsubmit the score, fix it, and resubmit it, but it requires both players to do it. So as you don't have someone do a dodgy and change the scores after they've been submitted, obviously.
Yeah.
So secondaries, so First Blood line was up to 3 custom ones. Each of them you can put some funky text in there, which will show up on scorecards, which I'll get to a little later. And let's just have, and there's a preview here as well, so I can see, well, what does the scorecard look like?
So this is what the players will see when they...
This is effectively, it's exactly what the players would see. Now, this is obviously focused around Shadespire, so I can come in here and just put in my glory by hitting enter scores. Only one player needs to enter a score sheet. The other one effectively hits a confirm. So when I hit enter scores, the fields become available to enter. So I got 5 glory, player 2 got 2. And you'll notice that it highlights the row in the color green, orange, or red, depending on who won, lost, or draw. So you're entering it as you. So you're effectively the one on the left. And if I come in and say, it was 3 to 6, and then 4 to 2, that's keeping track of what my total glory was, my difference in glory, and match points. And then, of course, I can submit the scores.
Oh wow!
To go through.
So it literally does a lot of that for the player.
It does it all. If you have the only thing that you might need to do is if you get the same amount of glory, it'll show up as a draw. But let's say your opponent had, and this is my very limited understanding of Shadespire, but if your opponent has no models left on the table and you do, then you will count as a win, even though you got the same glory. So I can tick, hey, I won, or I lost. So that's the only time you should really need to overwrite the scores, as far as I'm aware. But at the moment, I've got it that you still can override them, because until I get a better if it was a 40k event, I obviously understand it, but obviously Shadespire is something that we're all getting a little bit used to.
Yeah.
The scoring format. So I just want to make sure that there's as you said, idiot proof. All right, and that's really the relevant stuff for setup for a Shadespire event. There's not, as I said, not a huge amount you have to do, because you don't have, complex paint scorecards and complex battle scorecards and so on. So basically, I just come in and manage players. I'll see that I'm there now, marked as registered. So as a TO, I can see who's registered, who's what I refer to as active. So if they show up on the day, you tick them as active, and they'll be included in pairings. If they didn't show up or they drop out, they might change their status to cancelled or dropped out. It's up to you. So I'm going to include myself in the pairings, and just I won't go through every single round, but I'll just hit sort the round. So that goes through. Remember that I grudge Pete, so that's the showing up that I'm paired against him. You do have access as a TO to unpair people if for whatever reason, let's say you pair them and then suddenly you realize, hold on, no, Alan Oliver isn't actually here, or someone's running late, so I want to pair them differently. You can just simply click on the X button. And then click on someone else's and then start selecting them manually if that's something you need to do. Realistically, I don't know many people that need it, but it's an option just in case. I can then work out the tables, which is pretty much just 1 to 9 in the first round, but it will try and pair people on different tables that they haven't played on yet.
Awesome.
Probably not so relevant with Shadespire, but obviously relevant for 40k.
So that's one of the biggest ones that we've faced over the last few years, particularly as the events have gotten bigger, is the software that we use. Generally, the whole play on a different table thing isn't. It's not a big thing in America. It's you play the lower your number, the better you are at the event. And I think most of our players, and I think it's fair to say that the majority of players that I've faced, at least in Australia, would be of the same mindset where the number of the table is less important than.
I've played on this one before. I want to play on a different one.
Certainly that's the mentality we get here.
Yeah, except for the rare occasion where you get someone who manages to play on the same table for every single game for their event.
We actually did have one player one year who played 4 games on the same table.
Did he win them all?
He went 2 and 2 from memory.
Okay.
But the funny thing is he actually had the same deployment zone for all 4 games as well. So he literally did not move from that side of the table, and he and his mates thought it was absolutely hilarious. And they chose not to tell me, and we didn't realize it until the end of the event. So it was they thought it was entertaining.
Fair. So the other thing that might be relevant, because I know you guys have been talking about trying to live stream some of the games.
Yeah.
So if for example, obviously it's not relevant for round 1, but let's say round 2, the person who was live streamed on table 1 last round ends up on table 1 again, and you want a new player, then I can't just come in and say, well, let's put you on table 2.
Yeah.
You'll notice that the table numbers highlight in red because obviously I've got 2 people on table 2. It also gives me a big warning, and I can then come in and put you on table 1.
Yeah.
And that'll tell me it's updated and all good to go.
Cool.
And on the rare events that you need to was something we put in for Oz Masters. If you don't want to actually activate the rounds, so they can't enter scores, but you want to actually publish who's playing who. Some people might use this at the end of day 1. You might work out the pairings for day 2, publish them, so people can see who they're going to play in round 4 tomorrow. But of course, they're not into scores. That's an option that's available to you. But most of the time, you just keep hitting that green button, and you should be good to go.
Oh, wow.
So at this stage, I can obviously see the pairings of who scored what, which obviously no one's scored anything. As a player, when I come into the page now, it will tell me how much time's remaining. So because games don't go over the day, it's just 10 hours left based on not worrying about the date, just the time. As a TO or I can come in and click on any one of these players and score on their behalf. So if they don't have a smartphone, I can handle that. But obviously, as a general player, only your name would show as a hyperlink. It'll sort it alphabetically, so you will see your name show up once in each column. So you just scroll down until you find your name, and you go, cool, I'm playing Pete on table 2. And I can just click on my name. And then the first person to bring up the scorecard will be asked if they want to enter the scores. Otherwise, the other person will get the same message, and I just hit enter scorecard. And it's the same screen you saw before. I can come in and go, 5 to 4. Never played Shadespire, but I'm sure I can beat Pete. Why not?
I was about to say, what happens, and you've just kind of done it for me there, what happens, because it's a best of 3 format for Shadespire, you've obviously played 2 games there.
You'll see there's an NA.
Yep.
So you just don't have to enter a third score.
Oh, cool.
I hit submit. And here I can see Pete got 0 round points. I got 3, and my it's still labeled as battle points, but differential is 5 to -5. You'll notice that this scorecard is showing in blue. That's telling me that only one player has actually submitted a score. As a TO, I can hit show details and see that the player 2 submitted, player 1 hasn't approved it yet, and the game was pretty quick. It took 1 minute. So I can actually see the game times as well, which is obviously fairly important. In 40K events where you track turns, it'll also tell you how many turns were completed. And that'll keep averages over the events of both individual players, so you can see troublesome issues, and there's a lot of stats that we provide around that. Yeah, so that's pretty much it in a nutshell for organising a round. Obviously, each player needs to enter a score. So let me just quickly come in and just go, cool, that was done. Loss in there, I guess. And benefits of demos, at least I didn't actually try and put in 32 players.
I think you're ambitious with 18.
Sorry?
I think you're ambitious with 18.
Well, I needed to properly test out the sorting algorithms because I was trying to work out what happens with draws and what's the realistic likelihood of it actually happening. And it turns out it is really likely.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So basically, with 32 players, if you have if you have, let's say you have 28 players, and is that what's the maths? I was going through this in my head just earlier to make sure I got this right and didn't trip myself up, and I've already tripped myself up. If you have 30 players and 1 game draws, then you will have 16 players on a win, 14 players on a win, 14 players on a loss, 2 players on a draw, who obviously just played each other. So top bracket's even, bottom bracket's even, middle bracket's even, and the middle bracket only has 2 players. So that was where I was trying to work out, well, what do we do? All right. So let's just close everything else. So I've got my scores in. As I said, not everyone has to enter a score, but as I can see, no one's confirmed their opponent's scores. But as a TO, I don't have to wait till they do it. If I get to the end of the round and their opponent hasn't done it, I'm just going to hit finalize the round anyway. It will warn me, telling me, hey, there's only there are games where only 1 player's entered the score. Do you want to continue? Hit OK. That will then go to round 2, and I can basically just hit sort the round. But if I do have a quick look at manage players, it will obviously then sort people by their match points, then by their differential, and then by their games lost. So I can see here, unfortunately, I should have been a bit more clever and try to make that one be a 2 as well. But yeah, that's how it sorts. It will track strength of schedule as well. Not something required for Grand Clash, but it is something obviously available to you. So if I now go into round 2, when I hit sort the round, you'll see Don Crick, who was on 3 wins and 8 battle points, is playing Michael Andrew, who was on 3 wins and 4 battle points. It works its way down, and you'll also see, similar scenario, highest ranked person on a loss versus lowest ranked person on a loss. And then I can do the exact same process I went through before. The other cool thing, as a TO, once you've decided, yep, we're now ready to have people place votes, you can come in and activate the player's choice. If you do best sports votes, you can activate that as well. So players can then go to the votes menu, hit player's choice. From that drop-down box, they'll see all the players that are currently active.
Oh, awesome.
They won't see their own name, so you can't have someone vote for themselves.
And can you limit it to, say, the top 5 or?
Unfortunately, not at this stage. I do realize that's something that Warhammer Underworlds wants to do. That being said, you can still, basically say, all right, these are the 5 armies. The other names will be there. Look, if it's something that ends up being a bigger thing, then I'll look at adding it. But at this stage, it's
it's just a minor thing, really.
Which, I mean, comparing to the fact that most people would normally have to write it on a piece of paper, it's still a lot better.
Yeah.
But yes, they can.
Paperless tournament.
It's designed for 100% paperless tournament. You, when I show you the other stuff for some of the other events, complex missions and things like that, you don't need to print out mission sheets. They can do it all on their phone. So I'm just going to vote for
power boards.
Yeah, well, that too. So when you place a vote for either player's choice or best sports, your name under the paint column will highlight in green to tell me that person's voted.
You voted.
Whereas obviously I voted for Aaron and he's now got 2 votes. So one of the other things I've seen in a couple of events in Melbourne that have basically said, if you don't submit a player's choice vote, you are ineligible for player's choice. Because there was some concerns that people who were going for player's choice had no incentive to vote because they couldn't vote for themselves.
Yeah, fair call.
It shouldn't be a thing, but unfortunately,
I'd never even considered that.
Yeah, well,
as far as player's choice for painting, I mean, people ask, can I vote for myself for painting? And I'll say yes. So, I mean, in this case, they wouldn't be able to, but
I like the idea they can't. They can't.
No.
That's one to discuss up there.
Yeah.
Well,
Look,
if you actually think that your painting is the best in the room, why wouldn't you vote for yourself?
Oh, for sure. And look, to be honest, it would be a simple add of a yes, no on that, on those settings. It would take me all of half an hour to add that. So, if that's something you feel you want to add, as I said, if TOs want stuff, I do this as a hobby. I tinker, I add features that I think would be cool. Yeah, that's, if it's something people want, it's something I'll add.
Be careful what you're saying, Diff. It is going out to the world. So
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Look, the reality is, if you come in and say, hey, I want to add a feature that's going to take me, a year to develop in my spare time, I'll say, well, it's not on my highest priority, and I'll probably put that to the side. But like, we talked about doing Shadespire events in Down Under Pairings, and I'm like, well, I don't really know how it works, the game yet, so I'll have to have a tinker. And it was really easy. So as in, I looked at the scorecards, they weren't overly complex, so yeah, I just added them in, just renamed a couple of things that I already had, and away we went. The other thing that I guess I didn't go into, so I've only had one player submit a list, which I guess I played with before we got online. So if I was to look at their scorecard, you'll notice under Army, it's got not applicable for Patrick because he hasn't submitted one. But under Alexander, if I hit deck list, it'll then bring up his name, the event, and then what was the
well
deck
done,
list.
Alex. This is probably one of the only events you've got an actual listing on time.
So because I couldn't find the actual deck build, this is literally a copy and paste from one of the box sets, which obviously doesn't tell me anything, but at least it was Shadespire related.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. So you can actually look at your opponent's lists.
Yeah, definitely. In both 40K and others. Yep. You can also, depending on a few settings, if I was to go to the public page and go to player standings, I can see how we're currently going. But I can also, if I was to just change a minor setting, which is to make it visible.
Okay, that was what I was literally just about to ask. So if players, they enter their... So obviously we ask for players to put their lists in prior to the event.
Yep.
We can make them so that they're, I guess, not visible until we actually want them to be.
Yeah, so if we were to use WATC as an example, obviously people submit their army lists and then you collated them and then published them. So the players could submit it No one can see it other than, of course, TOs, until you guys hit, yep, it's now visible. And then you'll now see the little army column, and Alex is the only one with a list. Click on that, and it's the exact same page I was just on.
Yeah, beautiful.
So pretty much all my events, all the events I've been to that have used Down Under Pairings, whether or not they have put up their army lists, I have put my army list in. I guess there was a... look, I haven't done as well enough in events for it to really be an issue, but obviously there was, there are some people that obviously have concerns of, because I do have the admin kind of access, what can I see? So I always put my list. I publish it on Facebook. I try and make it as clear as day, but you can't please everyone.
Just another question. So, do you have to be registered for the actual event to be able to go in and see those army lists?
Not at all.
And to be okay, awesome. Because that's one of the questions we get a lot is, what do the winning lists look like? Or there was something recently on one of the pages. Okay, I can't actually remember what it was, but it was one of the Hortons was playing a particular army. And
around his Deathwatch army for the Crags event I played in.
Yeah, so, then what did that army actually look like? And is it possible to get a copy of that list? So it would make it all nice and easy for people.
And I'm assuming that the historic tournaments would stay there as well. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep. So if I was to go back to tournaments and hit finalized, and if I was to go to, say, Ozmasters, all those armies are there. So I can click on myself, see what army I took at Ozmasters 2017, see all the results. The other thing I haven't touched on yet is awards. So one of the things that I found as a TO, even putting in a system like this, is if you have a ton of awards, it can be a nightmare to actually, at the end of the event, cool, I can hit sort order and I can mess around, and I don't have to export it to Excel, but I can play around with the sort order to get my awards. But I found that was just still too time consuming. So if I was just to hit the awards button, for starters, a new warning that as of an event recently I've put up, they went to the awards page before the last round was finalized, and a couple of scores weren't in. So a couple of people got the wrong awards. So now I'm, if you haven't finalized the last round, it tells you.
Don't press this button.
Yeah, basically don't say, hey, don't come in after round one and say, hey, Don, you won. So you can have as many awards as you'd like. Obviously, there's only 2 for this event, but when I chuck up First Blood, you'll see that. So in here, I can see, obviously, Aaron Guy got Best Painted. So at the end of the event, I don't have to actually collate anything. I just hit that awards button and just read out the stuff I've pre-prepared. So it requires you to come in before the event, and if I just actually click on Tournament Champion, say what my sort order is. What I'm calling the award, is it top 3? For some of your bigger events, you might do top 5, top 10, whatever. What fields you want to display on that award screen. And the other thing you can do is filter some things as well. So one of the other events I worked with, they had it was called Reckless versus Righteous. So basically, you're either a good guy or a bad guy. And they wanted to see the best good guy and the best bad guy. So they had a filter for this thing called a generic player note, and basically it was where you are reckless, and then it would list that.
So that'd be actually really useful for things like Horus Heresy, where you do have loyal and traitor,
and bolt action as well.
Bolt action where you do have access and allies.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much, as I said, the Shadespire one. If I was to just come back to First Blood.
I never get sick of seeing that logo. I really like that logo.
Me too. It's a good logo. So if I was just to hit manage, we deleted it because I was like, I'd let you play with it. So let me just.
Was that the one you were going to let me access and muck about with? Was it?
Yes, that's the one. Is this the one I'm thinking? No. Okay, I'll show you one other event that has finished now. Then I'll use that Reckless Righteous one. And we'll come in here and quickly skip over a few things. So basically, they had all their awards set up before the event. I've got it. It always shows who won the award. sorry, I'll rephrase that. Who got the scores that matched what you meant to get the award? But you'll notice that Dave Umana is showing up with a number 0, and then Dirk is a number 0, because basically both of those players have won an award higher ranked.
Yeah.
So if you're an event that says, hey, we're going to give the trophy to the person who wins it, but the prize to the highest, the next ranked person who hasn't won an award, then I can go, cool, we're going to give Dave the trophy, but Ben the prize.
Sure.
So those are options available for you. When you actually look at the event results, the icons go next to the player who actually, I'll say, earned them. So Dave may not have got the prize for Best Righteous because he won the event overall, but he still got the icon next to him because he did actually earn it.
Sure.
Yeah. That's pretty much most of the stuff I wanted to talk about. One other thing for, I guess, First Blood-ish. So let's go into Dave. He scored pretty well. I'd love it when TOs decide they're just going to put in one question rather than a big long one. Let's go with something that I think had all the questions. Black Crusade. And I'm quite happy to look at my scorecard. He already knows I've seen it, or has let me look at it. Where did I come? Sorry, I've just clicked on a different event.
Well done.
Well done. It's great demo here. Believe it or not, I actually do demos for a living. It is actually my job. So it's a bit of a mistake there, but so if I come into,
you're not on the clock at the moment.
No, exactly. So you can have complex paint scorecards. So put in all your questions.
So is the army painted? Is the army based? Is the army cohesive?
This is the actual questions for the slaughter. What's the score out of? What score did that player then get? And you can have multiple paint judges. It will then average the scores. We're also adding in something based off this event, actually, where players will be able to prejudge their own army. It won't actually give them a score, but when you come in, it'll say, all right, the score for is the army painted, or probably a bad example, are the models highlighted and shaded, is out of 5. The player suggests that they should have got a 4. You can look at it and go, all right, I know I'm looking for highlighting and shading. If they put a 0, you go, I don't need to ask, I don't need to look. I can skip over it and keep it nice and quick, because obviously paint judging, as you guys are more than well aware, takes time. You're usually either interrupting people at their game, or one of the things that came from this event was they had all the armies set up at lunch.
Yeah, and there's only so long for lunchtime.
Well, they had an extended lunch break. It was a 2-day event, 2 games on the second day, and but because it was lunch, people went off and ate, and so I know a few scores might have been missed that that the players earned. Yeah. But because they weren't there, they couldn't point it out. So, Jared's happy for me to say this, but for example, under do they have themed objective markers, I got a 0 when I did have themed objective markers, and he goes, oh, okay. And I sent him a photo of him, and he goes, yeah, you should have got points for that. But because there was a whole bunch of models there, it maybe not have been clear, or whatever. Having if I had said, I deserve 5 points for that, he might have gone, well, they're not that great, mate. You only get 3, but at least I'm looking for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've actually tried that manually a couple of times now with events.
It failed miserably.
It has failed multiple times, but we've tried.
Yeah.
With similar thought in mind is if you give us a pre-score, then at least we can.
It gives us something. To
start looking at exactly what and then you can take their pre-score to the table and go, okay, cool. What am I? Show me.
Yep.
So.
The other thing I thought I'd quickly show is some of the more complex things you can do to make it truly a paperless system. So under, for example, the primary missions, he gave it just the name primary mission and then said, these are the bonus points and things you get. So when I look at that scorecard, it says primary mission. It doesn't take up a huge amount of space, but I'll see a little info icon. I can click on that and I then see the scorecard or the detail about it. That can have images. So if you've got custom deployment maps, you can put that in there as well. All that sort of stuff.
So literally, when they go, "What's the mission for this one?"
They can look at it themselves. They don't need a printout. If you've got complicated missions, you might want to think about breaking it up nicer, and whatnot. But in a nutshell, the whole thing can be written in there, and and see what you want to see. Yeah.
There's a lot there, but I mean, I'm just going to get you back on screen now.
Yeah, sure.
So, I suppose as a TO, there's a lot to take in there. There's a lot of it though that's very familiar, at least for me. That it is kind of a combination of what we've been doing manually and with BCP and whatnot, and obviously having it in one spot makes it fairly good for us. The other thing from a player's point of view is having it all in one spot with it all stepped out. So, typical. When you get a scorecard, they're very generic scorecards because they have to cater for a number of different things. So having it so that you do have all the information on one spot with how they score it is also very useful.
Yep. Putting on the spot, have you had any major failures with it?
Oh, definitely. Any developer that says they've never had a failure is either hasn't released a product yet or is lying. And most of them, I think, probably come down more to me not putting enough checks and balances to stop a TO doing something incorrectly. So, I mean, prime example was round 5 of the slaughter, the event that I was just talking about. They didn't put in any primary missions. So when the scorecard came up, they didn't have a spot to enter their score. Now I was playing, so it wasn't something I could just quickly look at. So that wasn't a system issue per se, but that being said, I didn't stop you from making that mistake. So now when you try and start a round, if there isn't at least one primary mission, it tells you.
It's not going to start, yeah.
The other one was that, at the end of the event, someone got the wrong awards because they hadn't actually finalized the last round. So once again, I now put in warning messages. So most of them I don't think are necessarily issues with the system, more that they are, because I haven't stopped you from making a mistake. I think there comes a point though where you've got to trust that the people in question are going to hopefully get it all right. And we still find errors with our stuff from time to time that we have to fix on the fly, and it always happens. But the fact that you are working with the users of this, not just obviously TOs, but players, if they start giving feedback via the TOs or direct to yourself, then it only improves the system as we go on.
I think one of the things that I love is that when it came up and you said that, the first person to go in there can choose whether or not they're entering the scores or the other person, and you put your scores in under player 1, because one of the things that we have, which is often an issue, is players are putting their scores in the wrong column.
Yeah.
And, it's impossible for us to have checks and balances for that, particularly if you've got 120 players.
And when the numbers all add up to the scores that they should add up to, your VP differential, and the scores come up to 18-2. Cool, that all adds up. Awesome.
Yeah. So when you bring up a scorecard, you are always the player on the left. So if Mike and I are playing, we both have the phone in front of us, we both have the scorecard up. I'm looking at the left hand side. For me, and Mike
can be looking at the left-hand side.
Him. The other thing I didn't show, and I might just switch back to that. Just one last little thing that we did add just recently, just around this, was the ability. Let's go to Not So Grand Clash and get those side by side. So basically, if I come into, actually, let's just start round 2 real quick. And So if I open it as Aaron on the left-hand side, and I open it as Gabriel, his opponent, on the right-hand side. So when I come in, I can see here, let's go with, actually I might not, yeah, that should be work. All right, so if I come in and say 5, might not like it because I'm actually logged in as a TO. Bad example. But it will update the scores as I'm entering them.
Sure.
So if I come in here and say,
well, it's just done it there, hasn't it?
you know, I can see those scores update, and when I hit submit, I've finished, and the icon changes to orange and says now confirm. And I can't hit enter anymore because the players, a player has submitted the scores.
Yeah.
If Aaron here, no, sorry, I'm now showing as Gabriel. If Gabriel says, "No, hey, hold on, mate, we played more than one game," Aaron can go back into the score. And if I'm not the TO, he won't get override. He'll have unsubmit, and then you can keep going. But as I said, as a TO, I can come in and do whatever I want. So yes, there's checks and balances, but also the idea is to make life easy for
everyone,
TOs.
really, yeah.
And
exactly.
The limit at that point, of course, is an internet connection.
That's correct, and that's one of the things. So I've had a couple of people talk to me about Terracon. Now Terracon historically, or not historically, it is run in Naracoorte. In a town hall. The internet connection ain't that great. They don't use BCP. They don't use Down Under Pairings. They use, I'm not sure if it's an Excel spreadsheet or an actual application, but basically it's paper scorecards because they don't have the, they don't really have the facilities to have 80 to 100 players all trying to enter scores at the same time. They just don't have the internet connection to really do it. But that's that's their call. If they were, if there was NBN in Naracoorte, we'll see how it goes. The other thing, I guess, try not to plug too much, but I did make comment that most of our issues with Down Under Pairings have been set up. So at the moment, as I said, it's free, but I am offering a $10, which is pretty damn cheap, I think, event setup service where you send me the player pack and mission pack and I'll set it up for you, so as you don't have the issues. Your rewards are all set up. So pretty much everything I did for the Not So Grand Clash, I'll be offering that as a service for people. It's pretty much a drop in the ocean.
Well, that's it. When you talk about a 50-player event, $10 over 50 players is nothing in terms of cost for a TO.
That's what I think.
So it's probably a bargain at this point. You have 12 months' time. It's probably going to cost more than $10. So,
look, the reality is, I'm not doing it. Like if you've got an event that has 16 players and you want to use it and it's your first time using it, I'm not going to charge you. But if you are someone who is running a 100-player event, and you want me to do the effort and hard yards for you, then $10 is nothing. It's really, it's not there as an actual income stream, but obviously I've got hosting and domain costs, which $10 for the events that actually do it won't cover it, but it's it will go towards.
How many have we got at show?
Pardon?
How many events have we got at show?
Oh God, I don't know.
I'm just wondering if we sling him $200 and say, there you go. There's all the 20 of them. Go for it.
Sure. The other thing I do have the ability of doing is if you do, so the Not So Grand Clash, for example, if you get it all set up and you're like, yep, we want the exact same format for the Grand Clash, obviously more players, but the same format, there's a copy option.
Oh, beautiful.
So year to year, if the format doesn't change, you can literally just copy.
Yep.
Copy and edit.
Yeah, I mean, say for example, First Blood's a good example. We've run that 3 years in a row now. The missions have varied year to year, but the basic scoring format hasn't. Yep. So you can literally just copy the whole event and change bits of it to make it what you need.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Cool. Yeah.
That is a lot to take in.
It is.
It's good though. I'm actually really excited about trying it out. So
me too.
we've got our mixed
Takes a
gaming
lot for me
day.
to get excited about technology.
We've got the Not So Grand Clash, and we've got a 40k event running on the same day as the Not So Grand Clash. So we might
And AOS.
and AOS as well. Yep. So we might run them all through this and see what happens, because we can just have different tabs for the events. That's actually one of the things I also like about this, is that with BCP, you've got one login on the app and you come sort of going back and forth between events, which means for show last year was challenging.
Interesting, yeah.
Because we had, there's only one login, which was mine because it's attached to my player account, and then you're kind of having to log it in across multiple different devices and all sorts of stuff. So, I like just one other question I have for you. If, say, for example, I set myself up, the mixed game war calls for 40k in the system, can I then allocate Emma as another TO where she can go in and
as many TOs as you'd like? Yep.
So
two's enough.
Well, no, I'm more thinking about show where it'd be great to have, like we've obviously got volunteers running a number of the different game systems. So if I'm TOing the ATC that's happening at show, obviously it'll just need to be me and Emma so that one of us can make sure the scores are all correct. But then if we've got a volunteer called Matt who wants to run the Malifaux event, and if we were running it through BCP, then he could be in there alongside both of us so that he could still do it all.
Yep.
But if something happened, he couldn't complete it, or there was a problem.
BCP, did you mean Down Under Pairings?
Sorry, I'm doing it as well now.
It's all good.
DUP.
DUP.
It's gonna be DUP.
Yeah.
It'd mean that obviously we could all kind of join in and sort the issue out, or there's obviously fail safes there where if a TO has to step away, you can still adjust it with other players.
Yep. The other thing is with the paint judging, there are a couple of different levels of events where absolutely everything I've shown you today is free, but there are a couple of options where there's some pretty complicated stuff where it's like $5. Once again, same concept. It's just really for the big events that want it, that have the ability of chucking a couple of dollars my way that I can put towards hosting. It's there for that. So the ability to have unlimited paint judges, for example, and then do averages of those, that is, I think, $10 to get that feature. And without that, you just get the one paint judge, which for most events is fine anyway. It's only the big events that need multiple paint judges. But yeah, so I'm trying to scale it so as it's free for the people stuff that it should be free for, and that it's cheap as hell for events that can afford it.
So it'd be one of those ones, like for us, some sort of one-off annual subscription fee would probably be, something that'd
definitely.
I know that we're a fairly unique case in that regard, where we do run so many different events, but I know there's a few clubs around the country who do similar stuff to what we do, who do run 4, 6, 8 events across the year. And again, that peace of mind of knowing that there's support there and it's from someone who games and who understands it all is probably, again, worth the investment.
Someone who's in Australia.
Yeah. It's roughly the same time zone.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, from that perspective, it's one of those things. It's organically grown, and we don't have too many event organisers in Melbourne that run multiple events, with the exception of Dean Sinbeck, who runs 9 events a year or more, but basically one a month. But I think there are some gaps. So it's, as I said, it's not something we've overly talked about. He's also been a big guinea pig for the system as well, which, shout out to him, because basically he's constantly said, all right, I want to add this, I want to add that, and he's helped me test it and get it out there, and get the coverage that people might be interested in using it. The more people that use it, there's 2 pages on the whole thing, and they're rankings based. So if you go and look at rankings that have ads on them, everything else is ad free. And I think so far I've had ads for 2 months, and I've got a total of $2.30.
Oh, that's like a Mars bar.
I know, it's optimistic.
But if I can get lots of people, just using it, and then I'm hoping that just those sorts of small ads can cover costs and I
don't think people sometimes realize what hosting and domain names and all that sort of stuff cost annually. There's a fairly significant dollar value attached to them.
Yeah, and I guess I've looked at from the hosting perspective. I shopped around to try and obviously get the best deal, but on the flip side, I did have to consider, and I've asked a number of hosting companies, what would happen if 200 people all tried to access the same page doing the same database call at the exact same time? Because obviously round pairings are up. Everyone look at your phone.
Yeah.
What would happen? Would it crap itself? And a couple of places that had cheap hosting said, nah, like that stuff doesn't happen. I'm like,
yes,
it
does.
It does. Yeah.
So
having watched what happens with BCP at LVO the year I was there, when you got
even just
400 people using that app trying to get onto that one server to get the matchups was
So yeah, it's
yeah.
It's it's not the top tier hosting, but it's the it's definitely above the low tier.
Yeah. I mean the weekend that this year, CanCon and LVO running on the same day using BCP at the same time, and you've literally at that point got thousands of people accessing it at the same time.
Yeah, on the most part, if you think about when you actually access it, and this is what I was trying to work out, if I have multiple events, multiple locations, etc., running it, the reality is
the chance of everyone looking at exactly
at the same time.
So
Even if my round is meant to start the same time as your round, good luck. One of us
haven't been to one of the events that I run because my events run on time.
Well, yes. And with Down Under Pairings, that'll be easier. Shameless.
Oh man, look, I know it's I'm conscious of the time as well because it is very late for you with the time difference.
Goodness, it's midnight.
Yeah, so look, we've kept you a long time tonight. Thank you very much for all your the demo and for answering all of our inane questions.
Your patience while we tried to learn Google Hangouts.
Yeah,
it's all good.
But
I might start using this for you've obviously Mike's watched some of my live streams while driving.
Yeah.
But I plan on doing some that aren't behind the wheel.
Yeah.
I've got much like you might probably got a bunch of mates from I haven't been to LVO, but obviously ETC.
Yeah.
Get a bunch of those guys on. So Google Hangouts sounds like the way to go.
The place to be.
There's definitely some options here, and it's one that it's going to be exciting to explore now that I've figured out how it all interacts with YouTube and all the rest of it. So
it depends how much lag there is in that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, we'll see as soon as I hit end broadcast. But thanks very much again, man. And
the one thing we don't get with this that you obviously get with Facebook is obviously the comments.
Yeah.
Well, I think that there should be a way that people can actually make comments.
Well,
because I know when we were with the guys from Ozhammer, people were commenting.
Well, I'm just going to I've got a control room option here, but we might look at that offline.
Yeah.
I know that there's also some options that we have for some of our streaming software that I use for our battle reports that'll let us stream to multiple spots. So with a bit of luck, we can obviously have it coming live to Facebook and YouTube and everything at the same time. But that's for another day.
Yes.
So
we have learnt enough for today.
Yes, we have. So thanks again, dude. Much appreciated. Hopefully everyone's enjoyed watching this. We're going to quickly jump on Facebook now for our weekly, fortnightly, bi-weekly, whatever you call it, AMA.
He's going to make a coffee first.
Yes. But otherwise, thanks again, dude. And we'll definitely have you back on soon.
Awesome. Ciao, guys.
It's really good to chat with you.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.